John.
Good evening. My name is John Michael Foulger. I'm represented by Mary Liz Management, and I've been an actor from what I can only feel like Noah was a kid. Emma.
Hello, I'm Emma Spurgin Hussey. I've been an actor for an increasing number of years, I suppose. I am represented by Teresa Filmcast Cornwall and Southwest, and I do various things at the moment, mostly narrating audiobooks and medical role play, both of which I enjoy. But I like lots of other things as well, including reading new scripts.
Hello, I'm Rory Wilton, and I'm also with Teresa at Filmcast Cornwall Southwest. I'm a film, television, stage, radio voiceover actor, and I've been doing this many, many, many years too, and I really enjoy reading new scripts.
And my name is Angela Elliott, and I'm a scriptwriter and novelist. I've been writing for quite a long time, about 35 years. And yeah, this is what we like doing on a Thursday or Friday evening when we've got a spare hour. So the one we're going to read tonight is Battenclaire, written by Simone G. Moore. Okay, Act 1. Exterior establishing shot of Serenity Gardens, funeral home, Hertfordshire, England, UK. Day. Interior garage, Serenity Garden funeral home, 1962 day. Two men in grey coveralls clean a pretty silver hearse. Jimmy Jorgensen, 40s, tall, lean in a well-worn baseball cap with the business name patched on, and Cole Jorgensen, 18, average height, good-looking, slim build with tufts of dark brown hair sticking out from his cap. One scrubs the left side, the other the right. A radio comes on in the background, poor reception. A hip pop song comes on. Cole bobs his head to the catchy music as he works. Jimmy glances at him, shakes his head.
Oh, kids these days.
Cole peers up at the older man.
What to say, Dad?
Nothing, son. Enjoy the music. Enjoy the noise.
Jimmy looks at the garage entrance. A couple stands there. A handsome, statuesque man in a tailored dark grey suit and a pretty petite woman in a stylish, flared, lighter grey dress and heels, both perhaps 30-ish. She stands close by his side. Both with deadpan expressions, they silently stare at the workers. Jimmy puts down the yellow sponge, wipes his hands off and with a nearby towel, then approaches the couple.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, can I help you?
Is the director available?
I'll have to see. What's your name, sir?
Battenclaire, Lord Robert and Eleanor Battenclaire. Jimmy pauses, regards the distinguished younger gentleman differently.
Right. I'll get him for you, your lordship and lady.
She doesn't look at Jimmy. Her light eyes dart around the dirty floor of the garage. Jimmy bows slightly and scurries to a door into the inside. Interior main office continuous, a moderately sized room with heavy dark leather furniture, burgundy carpet and draperies. Aston Jorgensen, 40s, funeral director, slim, stereotypically gaunt, in a dark pinstripe suit befitting that of an undertaker, sits at the heavy wood desk, filling out paperwork. Jimmy is at the door, knocks lightly. Aston slowly looks up at him.
Yes?
The couple's here. At the garage, Lord and Lady Battenclaire?
Aston quickly stands up from his leather seat.
Battenclaire?
Yeah.
Haven't heard from any of them in many years.
Jimmy nods.
I know. They're young. Must be the old man's kids.
Did they say what they want?
No, they just asked for the director, bro.
Right. I'll be out in a minute.
Jimmy nods quickly, exits the posh doorway. Interior garage continuous. Jimmy returns. Cole is inside the hearse, wiping the dashboard. The titled couple still stand in the same place where he left them. Same non-expressions. Jimmy looks over at Cole, pokes his head into the opened hearse window.
Did you bother to ask them if they wanted a seat?
Cole stops what he's doing, turns and looks at his father incredulously.
Of course I did, Dad. They not so nicely declined.
Jimmy pulls back out of the window, approaches the couple again. Well?
The director will be out in just a moment, lordship.
Lord Robert regards Jimmy distrustfully, stares him down with cold eyes. Creeped out, Jimmy returns to cleaning the hearse. Aston comes out from his office door, steps into the garage and walks over to the couple.
Lord and Lady Battenclaire.
Aston extends his hand for Lord Robert to shake. He returns the salutation. Are you the director, Mr.
Jorgensen, Lord Aston Jorgensen. Ah, yes, I am the director. How may I assist you both?
We would like to purchase a casket.
Ah, yes, your lordship. We have a vast selection for you to choose from, but first...
Lady Battenclaire takes an audible wavering breath. Her bottom lip quivers, eyes fill with tears. Aston turns to her.
Are you all right, lady?
My wife is fine. The caskets, Mr. Jorgensen?
Yes, your lordship. Follow me.
Aston leads the way for Lord and Lady Battenclaire. Jim and Cole are outside the hearse. They watch the three of them leave the garage and enter the sales room. They cast uncomfortable looks at each other. Interior casket sales floor continuous, a large windowless alabaster-coloured room lined with pointless curtains and a fabric ceiling that gathers in the centre around a cheap chandelier. The expressionless couple stand in the middle of the room, surrounded by shiny caskets of various colours, sizes and styles. Aston stands before them.
If you don't see what suits your needs in here, I can show you our catalogue of...
Lord Robert silently drifts past Aston, goes over to a stunning powder blue silver chrome casket. His wife follows, stands by him. Aston stands behind them.
This is one of our newest models, periwinkle blue, including the latest in preservative sealant technology.
Lady Battenclaire lets out an involuntary sound as if catching her breath. Her shoulders slump a bit, upper body shakes. Lord Robert carefully opens the casket. It's lined in flawless white satin.
I'm sorry. May I ask who is the decedent?
A brief pause as Lord Robert closes the casket. Our daughter. Aston lowers his head. Lady Battenclaire takes another audible deep breath.
I'm terribly sorry, your lordship, lady.
No response. Another pause. This one will do.
Yes, lord. Just so you know, we do have equally lovely pink ones for girls over...
Powder blue was her favourite colour.
Not every girl likes pink, Mr. Jorgensen.
Aston nods in agreement, gives a tiny grin.
You are right, lady.
Lord Robert turns to Aston. We would like it delivered tomorrow.
Delivered, lord?
Yes, as early as possible, tomorrow.
Right, your lordship. But of course I have to check our schedule to...
I'm sure you'll make room for us, Mr. Jorgensen. My father, I'm sure you know, has done business with your funeral home in the past. Very good business.
Yes, our late father did mention that...
I'm sure it would behoove you to accommodate us in order to maintain our good business relationship.
Right. Yes, your lordship. But now, your daughter, may I ask how old she was?
No.
All right, your lordship. Where is she located so that we can prepare her for services?
There'll be no need for that, Mr. Jorgensen. We bury our own, as your father before you knew. Lady Eleanor takes yet another audible deep breath, on the verge.
Fine, lord. But have you reported...
We'll be expecting your delivery men in the morning, Mr. Jorgensen. I prefer that they dress respectfully in suits. Now, if you don't mind, we can take care of the financials.
Yes, your lordship. My office is this way?
Aston leaves the bereaved couple to his office. Exterior establishing shop, gated Victorian-era mansion estate, Hertfordshire, UK day. Exterior cul-de-sac, Battenclaire Court, Battenclaire Estates, morning. A giant cul-de-sac set before a palatial gated community of 1550s mansions and manor homes. A black hearse slowly rolls in with the name of the funeral home, Serenity Gardens, prominently displayed on both sides. It approaches from the tall black wrought iron gates. A hand extends from the window and presses a speaker button. The gate begins its long parting process. Once fully open, the hearse proceeds up a designated driveway. A tall, plump man in a butler's uniform waits them. He uses his chubby white-gloved hands to silently guide the hearse in the direction of a sizable manor home on the left, straight ahead. Exterior driveway, Lord Robert Battenclaire's manor home, continuous. The hearse pulls into an arched side driveway. Jimmy and Cole exit the hearse, dressed in black suits as requested. A short, squat, middle-aged woman in a maid's uniform exits the home to greet them.
Morning, miss.
Morning.
She waits as the men carefully remove the periwinkle blue casket from the back of the hearse.
Follow me.
Jimmy and Cole carry the casket, follow her into the large home. Interior parlour, Lord Robert Battenclaire's manor home, continuous. A spacious, dense Victorian room with old dead relatives' photos on the fabric wallpapered walls. An intricately carved wooden catafalque sits in front of the fireplace.
This way.
She guides them to the catafalque. They gently place the casket on top of it. The home is abuzz with people walking down the halls outside the parlour. After placing the casket down, Jimmy looks across the hall. Perhaps through an open door of a bedroom, he sees a small girl, perhaps aged 4 or 5, lying face up, too perfectly still on a bed. In a burgundy velvet dress trimmed with white lace, her little legs covered in white stockings, the pretty golden-haired girl propped up by powder blue pillows. It's surrounded with fresh flowers. More are piled on by visitors inside the room. Her faded blue eyes seem stuck in a 1,000-mile stare at the wall in front of her, never blinking. 2 elder women in dark gowns sit on chairs by the bed weeping. The little girl is dead. Cole notices his father staring off. He walks over to him.
What's up, Dad?
Jimmy tilts his head in the direction of the deceased child in the bedroom. Cole sees the child and quickly turns away.
I'll wait outside.
Jimmy whispers a small prayer to himself before pulling out a cloth. He wipes the casket down. Exterior driveway, Lord Robert Battenclaire's manor home, continuous. Cole walks over to the passenger side of the hearse. Before entering, he watches as a crowd of children, boys neatly dressed in suits, girls in knee-length dresses and bolero sweaters, playing in a nearby courtyard. So that's our 10 pages excerpt. So who wants to kick off with this?
Well, I really enjoyed it. It's my second read of it today, and it reads a lot better second time round than first. I think I can sort of get more of the sense of the atmosphere of it now. And I was starting to picture it a lot more with that 60s kind of color palette, and imagining sort of that it could be quite creepy and quite dark, and that there's a nice mystery about it. I was sort of reminded of things like Haunting of Hill House, that it has a similar sort of something's not
Same
quite
sort
right
of
here,
time frame
kind
as
of.
well, yeah.
And I'd love to read more. I'm very intrigued as to how this carries on. Is it film or TV?
I'm just
Do we know?
checking so the log line is 1960s UK. For honesty of the soul and purity of blood, a mysterious, fiercely reclusive family of British aristocrats give credence to the phrase, keep it in the family. This is loosely based on, inspired by the American DuPont family, Teflon frying pans, etc., but with twists and turns. I imagine, I don't know, it doesn't say whether it's a film or TV. Could be either.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I imagine this could be a really nice slow burn story that would take an 8-episode series to properly tell. I mean we've set up a lot of really interesting atmosphere in these first 11 pages that I think we'd be sort of jumping into a sprint pretty swiftly to try and get it done within 90 minutes. But I really like it. Initially I thought when I read it early on today that the dialogue was a bit clunky, but I think it's stylized rather than clunky.
Exactly, yes.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yes. Thank you. Emma.
Shall I go next? Yeah, I mean, I think it's got legs, and I did enjoy it, and I did see interesting atmosphere to it. But I've got quite a few notes because I'm verbose, but I just made a few little scribbles. John will be very pleased with you, Simone, because you have put down both the time and the place, and he's always, bemoaning the fact that lots of people don't. So it gives us a hard job visualizing what you mean. But do try and put the medium down for us, because that's quite helpful too. There's lots of detail about you love clothes, and there's lots and lots about people's appearance. And I just think there might be times when I'm guessing you're American because of things like coveralls, when we would say overalls. And I'm just thinking I would do some research on time and place a little bit, as much as you can, because I don't know whether people really wore baseball caps in this country in 1962. I don't think they did.
No.
I think it would have been like a flat cap
A
or
flat
something.
cap, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say try to give only vital descriptive information about characters' appearance, but also their just like what is really going to be useful for directors, actors,
key way
designers.
into their personality,
And also their nature, which should come out through, of course, their words and their actions. It's quite novel-esque at the moment. For example, you talk about the yellow sponge and things like that, which we would see, and the light eyes of Lady Eleanor. I would suggest that you tried your best to watch and to listen to and to read stuff from that era from this country, because every time and place has got its own sort of music, and it's different for us now than it was then, and it was you look at it on film and it looks like, like we look at our childhood and it looks like a different world, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or I'm wondering, is it all meant to be a tiny bit off? Like you talk about things being stylized. I wondered, almost like we're talking about, sort of slightly ghostly, eerie things, but I'm also wondering about that sci-fi thing where people come back from the future or something like that, or from the past, and they get something just slightly wrong, and it's a bit like, it's quite odd, but not quite, I don't know, but I was just curious about that. For example, using what we would think of as surnames for first names is relatively recent in this country. I think it started in America, things like Aston, things like Cole, whereas we would probably have been much more traditional in the 1960s generally with men's names, I would hazard. Maybe let us come to you a bit. Top of page 4, for example, there's something that Cole says. I think he's in the car, giving a little polish. And a little bit more brilliant. Jimmy wants to know why Cole hasn't offered these posh people a seat, and he says, you have offered them somewhere to sit. Of course I did, Dad. You probably don't need any more than that, really, because clearly they're still standing. They'd have the upper hand. We don't need they not so nicely declined. And I think it's just times when let us make the jump. And we feel clever then in the audience. Of course, it's not us being clever at all; it's you. But I just think sometimes we like to feel that we've done some work. What can you pare back? For example, does Robert need to say when Jimmy comes back? Well, I mean, yes, he's trying to control things, but that could be conveyed with a look. And actors love having the chance to make something of apparently nothing. So I just wonder whether that could be implied rather than stated. Look at something that's probably online now, like Debrett's, maybe, for how to address people of different ranks. Because I think sometimes people who are American, I hear about like Judi Dench being called Dame Dench and things like that. And of course, well, not of course, but people tend to say here Dame Judy and use the first name. And we tend not to say Lord, for example. It would be like, your lordship, my lady. I would look up and find out, what is their rank? How would people have addressed them, and it's different even now, I think. But it does sort of like ring a slightly off tone in a weird race memory way, I think, for us. So try and get that really tickety boo, unless of course it is off for an interesting reason. Also, things like top of page 5, there's quite a lot of detail about what Lady Eleanor is doing physically, with breathing and trembling and things like that. I just wonder whether sometimes, if you give actors just a little kind of push, like there you go, just like that, like Lady Eleanor gulps, it will give them that's just something to play. Like, is she crying? Is she just unable to speak? What's going on? But actors, we love that. We really love not being puppets. We love having a chance to bring something to it to help you tell your story. But when we had things before where people have, tried to choreograph it down to the last blink, and you just feel a little bit like we've been wound up and let go.
Do an animation.
Yeah. So just think, what can you give them that's useful and intriguing and interesting to do? Gives an actor more to interpret. Yes. You talk about there being a cul-de-sac outside the front, and I can't quite picture this, but I'm imagining you're thinking of a sort of semicircular drive or an arc drive in front of the house. But I can't, when we say a cul-de-sac, we generally talk about something quite suburban and,
Yeah. A road that goes in has got houses all around.
Yeah.
And you come in and you come out the same road.
I grew up on a cul-de-sac. It wasn't that suburban, it was a council estate, but you could drive in and park, but you couldn't drive out. There was just a footpath out. And I think it's more of a sort of a residential place than the approach to a grand manor. Yeah, because I don't know quite what we're picturing there. I don't think.
Can I just point out at that point? Otherwise, I shall forget it because I didn't make a note of that. You're right. We do not have gated communities of 1550s or any era mansions and manor homes. That's not how it works. If they're lord and lady of somewhere, they will have a big house somewhere in the countryside. They may also have a townhouse in town. And when we talk about in town, we mean London. Which I appreciate if you're American is a city, but we call it the town. And so it's just a bit like the titles thing. It's just getting those little details right.
Yeah, there might be a gatehouse. There might be
you won't have a gated community, but you will
what
have a gate.
What threw me at that point was the double scene heading: the establishing shot of a gated Victorian era mansion estate in Hertfordshire, and then a cul-de-sac of Battenclaire Court, Battenclaire Estates Warning. And then you say it's a gated community of 1550s mansions. Well, Victorian era is 18 something. 1550 is 16th century. So there's hundreds of years between the two. You've kind of got to decide, what is it? Where are they living? How are they, it's just a little odd.
And again, if you're going to say, if it's important that, say, some of the buildings were established in the time of Queen Elizabeth I, but then they've been, changed around in Victorian times, it has to be vital. Otherwise, people are going to have to try and find a location that's like that. And that, of course, means that costs will escalate madly. I'm nearly done. I'm just wondering, I hope that these are useful things from the point of view of somebody who lives in this country. But I don't think people would have called a middle-aged woman Miss. I just don't think they've done it. They would have been like Mrs. Yeah, it would be very dismissive to call a mature woman Miss like that. That's for girls. It's a really interesting setup. I would like to find out what you do with it. And I hope it's all right to say on behalf of us, I'd be really interested to see perhaps, another draft of it, and to run, if it's helpful, run a sort of British eye over it again, because I think it's hard. I think it's a really big thing that you're doing, of setting it in the past and in another land in different ways.
And one other kind of thing is you refer to caskets. They're coffins over here.
Do we say decedent apart from in police procedurals? I think we might say the deceased.
Deceased,
I don't know whether he would have said all right to a posh person. It would have been very well or something. Being a funeral director, like Vic, for example, he's slim and he's stereotypically gaunt. He just needs to be gaunt, really, because slim, is like a step away. And to talk about the financials, I rather like it. It's quite fun. It's very sort of somehow prudish, but I don't know whether you just say if we could discuss the bill details. Yes, the bill. They'd be sort of trying to brush it under the
that's what I think. Would they then have said that?
No.
They would have said, our man will, we'll send.
My factor will call on your
send the bill.
Yes. They wouldn't have talked about something as filthy as money.
No, definitely not.
They employ someone to do that dirty sort of work.
In fact, it would have probably been the land agent that would have dealt with that, or something like that, And land agents are not the same in the UK as they are in the States, by the way. Land agent was somebody that dealt with the estate business of a large estate, and was another servant of the
big house.
The big house, as they say. John.
Yes. One thing you need to, everybody's mentioned it so far, but during the 1960s, there was a very definitive class structure.
Yeah.
You had the poor, you had working class, you had the middle class, and then the upper class. And the upper class were the upper class. As Rory and Emma have said, there are very definitive things about it. Titles are used constantly. You would never use a first name or a surname because you're not in the same bracket as them. It would always be your lordship or your ladyship, and that would be it. You would never use a name because you're not that intimate with them.
No.
You go to page 3, you've got Jimmy, yes, Ashton, haven't heard any of them in many years. You don't need to put Jimmy's nod and then I know. They're both the same thing.
Yeah.
If you put Jimmy nods in agreement, you don't need to put I know.
Yeah.
But I would miss the line out, Jimmy nods in agreement. Same as the next one, Jimmy shakes his head. I wouldn't bother with them because you don't need that movement to interrupt the conversation. You just let the conversation flow. And that works better for you and it works better for the actors. There was some, yes. Cul-de-sac is just a long road that loops at the end. That's all it means. The French had them in courtyards. But when you went jousting, you rode into the tilt, but you could only go in one way and you could only come out the same way. That's where the cul-de-sac comes from. Because when you draw it on a piece of paper, it looks like a sack.
Bag.
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. I know it's a boring piece of information, but that's where it comes from. I did enjoy it. I think it's got legs. As has already been commented, you would call her, I mean, if these are definitely working class guys, the maid would be referred to as Mrs. or something like that. But Miss, definitely not. You wouldn't call a middle-aged woman Miss. Good chance you're going to get a back out. Yeah.
There's a good chance though that he might say love, or so, you know, it might even sound like it's even more sort of intimate than you might imagine, because one of the things like, all right, me old gal, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, we know it's Herefordshire, so we know it's down at Rory's end of the world where people use expressions like my love and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And because
or if he knows her name, he might call, or mostly women who weren't married, who were middle-aged, got called Mrs. anyway.
Yeah, definitely in the 60s.
Just
I mean, she's a working, she's a maid in a big house.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a good chance her mother was a maid in another house and she got her this job when she was younger.
Below stairs for generations.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Generations of it. But you've got things like a gated Victorian community. No such thing. Never happened. It did not happen in this country, as well as in England. I'm in Scotland, by the way. That's why I say this country, as well as in England. They would build a small bungalow at the entrance of the house, and there would be a gatekeeper who lived there, and his job would be to announce you or to let the big house know that you come.
Or tell you to clear off if you weren't supposed to be
invariably
there.
his job would be to phone the house and say, right, there's a car coming with so-and-so in it, so that when you arrive, the butler knows who you are.
Yes.
So he's not clueless. So when my lord goes, you know, so he lets you in the house, oh, my lord is waiting for you, or whatever. You know, you've got to get these things. The upper class had very strict rules which were needed to be obeyed. You couldn't be seen to break those rules because it would belittle you even further.
The other thing that's important about that upper class thing is the Battenclaire is a great name, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Are they? But those names in the aristocracy tend to be place names, and they actually have a different surname.
Yeah.
That's like the royal family. You know, they're the House of Windsor. you
It's
know.
only that's where they live.
Hi, Angela. But I have to
they
say that we
changed.
were working at a manor house, Rory and I, in a film, and I looked at the gatehouse. I saw an address to the woman of the house, and it said Lady Claire Shockborough Hall, Shockborough.
Yeah.
Her address,
Exactly.
and it was surname, house, and village.
So I'm
Yeah.
assuming
Yeah.
that Battenclaire is the name of the
It'll be
it's
the house.
estate. It's
Yeah.
Battenclaire House, not because it's their surname, but because it's the estate name, and they've taken that surname.
Taken the name of the place, yeah.
They would be Lord and Lady Battenclaire. He might actually. They're not just the Lord and Lady. They won't just be a Lord and Lady. That's like calling them. That's the title, like calling them Mr. and Mrs. But in actual fact, their title will be Baron whatever
The Earl of
of
Battenclaire.
Battenclaire, or Earl so and so of Battenclaire, or Duke so and so of whatever.
Or somewhere completely different, because often they've got
yes,
their
exactly.
title is not to do with where they live at all,
No.
is it? Like the Dukes of Suffolk and people. It's
Exactly.
very strange.
Yes.
Or like the blinking Devonshires.
Yeah.
So
So Duke of
Devonshire
Cornwall.
lives in sodding Chatsworth House in Derby, you know. It's very complicated, and you're right, and that's why Emma gave a good piece of advice to go and look at Debrett's or Burke's Peerage and get it all right.
Just to diversify for a tiny little bit, I know that house. It's the same house that they used in Poldark, and I filmed there for Wuthering Heights.
Which house?
The one that you were just talking about.
Shogborough.
Yes.
No, this is Shockborough. This is up near Shockborough, Shuck,
Yeah.
and it's up near where is it up near? Warwickshire?
Doncaster kind of way. Yeah.
And I stand corrected, it's not, because the one we shot is down near you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When we filmed there, we were the first production that had ever actually filmed there.
Right.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. There've been books there since the time of the Domesday book.
The same family have lived in that house for 1,000 years.
Wow.
A house,
and the church, the estate church is full of Shuckboroughs.
Just up the road from me is a castle that was built in the 12th century, and the family that lives there now have been there for 28 generations.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it? They're near Daventry. That's the nearest place.
Got smaller and smaller and smaller. You know, a tower falls down, so everybody moves out of there.
Anything else you want to say about the scripts, John?
Yes, I was just going to say it. I think it's well written. I think your characters are gonna develop. Oh, sorry about that. I've got two cats who like playing with laundry, and they've just pulled the clothes horse over. But really enjoyed it. Thoroughly looking forward to the next rewrite and us doing it all again for you. Fantastic.
Yeah, so my comments are very perfunctory, really. You can name Lord and Lady Battenclaire. You don't need to call him man at the start. When you say they're standing there waiting, please just give them their names, because you're giving those names for the actors, the directors, the producers. It's not about the story at that point. It's about giving information. I think really the only other things that have all been brought up: flat cap, not a baseball cap. Some of the dialogue is a little bit, as we've mentioned. Don't think that the ordinary people, the working class people, would talk to them like that. They'd be very deferential, and I think we've already said that. And you might get them put on. Also, this is something, and I'm pulling this from having been a child in the 1960s and remembering 1962 quite well. You say a hip pop song. Really, jazz was hip at that point, but pop songs weren't really hip. Hip was something with reference to pop songs came in much later. 1963, I think it was the first Beatles hit. So you're not in 1962, you're on the back end. You've still got quite a lot of rock and roll, and
it's all doo-wop and rock and roll.
All,
the Everly Brothers, all that.
Yeah, it's all of that sort of stuff. What else was I going to say? It's yes, they must. So what then? So when they're talking to each other, they'll be quite colloquial. They'll be quite, and so you've got a thing where he says dad, and you picked up on that, John. And he might actually not call him dad. He might, to his brother, he might call him the old man, because that was quite common. Also, it was very common to call your dad Pop.
Yep.
So they might talk to each other in a quite an ordinary sort of a way, with an ordinary accent, and put on a slightly posher accent when talking to the aristocracy. And this is something my aunt used to do, which I could never work out when I was a kid, was why was she talking so ordinary? And then she'd go into a shop even, and she put on a very posh voice. Please, may I have half pound of ham? You know, and you think, what? Who are you? But that was what.
That's how you got
You'd
served.
have a telephone voice as well, wouldn't
Yes.
they? My grandmother
I was
had
just
that.
gonna say,
Yeah.
that's what my
Yes.
mother would do when she answered
Exactly.
the phone.
Yes.
So
She'd
I
say
think
to you, oh, the phone's ringing. And then she'd answer, oh, the phone.
yes, I think we've covered it all. I did pick up on
Yes.
some of the spelling is American, color and things like that. I don't think that matters so much. It depends where you're going to be selling this, really. So if you're selling it in the States, that doesn't matter. If you're selling it in the UK, they'll get a bit pissed off.
Just one more thing, if I may be.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind this is the end of the 50s, beginning of the 60s, there's a good chance the old man would probably be wearing something like a trilby.
Could be.
Very, very common in England. My father always wore one.
Yeah. The other thing is, and I know for the point of view of the story, you need them to turn up to look at the casket. But in actual fact, they're not going to go and look at the casket at all. They're going to send a man to do it.
With specifications.
Yes, exactly.
And
Who's going to come back and report, and then they may be sent again. So I know for the purpose of the story, you want to have them there, and that's great. And I'm sure there's a way around it. But in actual fact, they probably wouldn't have gone at all. They'd have just sent someone to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just one more addendum. I think it's fairly obvious, but the guys delivering the coffin wouldn't bring it in the house. The people of the house would do that, the footman or something like that. And you'd never see the dead girl's body. This is a private house. This is a big house. She would be somewhere away. The people would go up to see her.
The other thing
in the room next to the dining.
And the other thing that makes me wonder is you don't say they are not going to bring that coffin in through the front door. No. It's going to go in through the tradesman's entrance in the back.
Out the back.
And they're not going to get anywhere near the inside of the house, of the posh rooms, the upstairs. They're going to be down
the family bit,
They won't go near the family. So you've got a little bit of work to get the details right, just to make. But I think it's really interesting, and I love the way that it's working. You know, the direction it's going.
It has loads of potential, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so
I hope that's been helpful for you. Anyway.